Oh my goodness. Hello. Welcome. I am back to my own podcast. This is the first official episode of the rebooted podcast that I am now officially calling The David Mammano Show. Back in the past, it was Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast, so then I changed it to The Gonzo Experience. I was on hiatus for 2 years with my own podcast as I was doing a show for another company, and that show has been sunsetted. So now I am back to my own podcast. So super excited. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to the David Mammano Show. This is our first episode, and with surgical precision, I really picked the person that I so wanted to be my first guest because I just admire the living you know what out of her. She has been everything that you could imagine, from a model to so many life experiences. I want to say that she's been in the boxing ring with that Russian guy from Rocky, and she keeps on getting back up. Her name is Amberly Lago. Amberly, you are such a sweet person, and thank you so much for being on my and not only on my show, but my first guest. I'm so honored. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I feel so honored to be back with you and to be your first guest. And we have been trying to work this out for a while now, and our schedules finally met up. But I have to say, that was like the ultimate best intro music and best introduction. And I don't know if you know this, but I actually used to box.
Oh my God. Okay. I did not write that in my notes.
Yeah. I was into I did Muay Thai kickboxing, Krav Maga, even have a belt in Krav Maga, and did boxing. And I used to hold mitts for people and teach them how to box. So I love boxing. So when you said that, I'm like, yeah. I think you officially are the most Renaissance woman I've ever met, or person, not even woman. I thought you've done it all. So very, very excited. You've been through so much. And when I said that you've been through the boxing ring with what's his name, Drago, the Russian guy from Rocky, and you know, what you have been through would have crushed most people. Right. And you have gotten back up, and every time you get back up, you are stronger, not only for yourself, but for other people. Your story is so freaking amazing that you should write a book. Oh, we're going to talk about that. And we're going to get to that, everybody. But Amberly Lago. So I want to give everybody a little tease, and then I want Amberly to kind of go through her story, which you've done so many times. But every time I hear it, it's just so inspiring. First, it's heartbreaking, and then it's inspiring. And I love that you have created all your experiences now into a mission of helping other people to be their best, right? So today, you know, if you go to Amberly Lago's website, which is simply amberlylago.com, good thing you got that URL, because probably there's a lot of Amberly Lagos out there, right? Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to have to ask ChatGPT that.
That's right. I bet you're the only one. What a great name. But if you look at it today, she is an author. She's a speaker. She's a podcaster. She has her own mastermind. I'm probably missing a lot of stuff. She has been a model, right? Been in modeling, and now I'm just finding out a boxer. So many incredible things going on. And she's going to talk about this, and this is all talks about her website, other podcasts, books, and everything. But if you look at that website, you would think Amberly has lived like the charmed life from God, and how dare this beautiful blonde woman gets to do all this great stuff. But if you want to really go behind the curtain and what has created the opportunities for her to do all this great stuff, speaker, podcaster, author, etc., is beforehand, and most people like really don't want to talk about all the bad stuff in their life, but Amberly has been very vocal about going through sexual abuse, being a divorce survivor, having some issues with substance abuse, turning and taking all of these experiences, and I want to say, and I think you say this too, turning these tragedies into triumphs, right? And I'm not even talking about like, this is what Amberly's going to talk about, what happened to her when she was on her motorcycle and got T-boned by an SUV, which really, correct me if I'm wrong, Amberly, but that may be kind of like the before and after, like of your life, right? And so that being said, thank you so much again for being on the show and sharing your story, the good, bad, and ugly. Really appreciate it. You've inspired hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people, and I'm really grateful and happy that you were born, because I think you were born to help people, and I'm really happy to share some time with you today. Want to hear your story, but first, I also want to make sure that a couple times through this podcast that we are celebrating the launch of your second book, and so this is going to come out in early March, but right now it's February 12th today.
Actually, like that, right? They pushed it up, and it came out yesterday.
Okay. Came out yesterday. So it was February 11th,
yeah,
right?
So it was like, no pressure, but we want to get your book out there sooner. And I'm like, okay, okay, let me just work a little faster and harder. Yeah. It's almost like birthing a child. And I've had 2 kids, and I think maybe often having a kid was easier, to be honest. I don't know. But yeah, so thank you for mentioning my book.
Absolutely. And by the time this comes out, you'll be able to buy it off our website, Amazon, etc. It's called Joy Through the Journey. And this is her second book. The first book was called True Grit and Grace. And you can buy both of these books. And also, too, I want to promote the fact that you are having an event coming up called Unstoppable Success Summit. And I want you to tell us more about that as well. So I'm going to stop talking. And Amberly, really, the microphone is yours. Please give us soup to nuts. The whole story's here.
Well, thank you. You know, when I hear you say some of the things, especially about the books, I guess my head was kind of spinning a little bit because, you know, my second book came out. My first book came out, I think it was 6 years ago. And I think I had a little PTSD from writing that book. It took me 2 years to write it. And this time around, writing a book, I wrote it in a shorter amount of time, but it was because I really set aside time. Like I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to write it, and I had deadlines and you know, it's amazing when you have deadlines with a publisher and they're like, are you going to get it? So I met all my deadlines. So not only that, it came out earlier, but I only share that because, you know, we all have a story. And there is someone out there, you know, we're all perfectly qualified to help the person out there that is going through what we once went through. And for me, I started sharing my story because I thought, gosh, I've been through so much between growing up and learning grit through some hard times, losing my career, having $2.9 million worth of medical expenses, being told I'd never walk again, and being completely scarred up from the hip down, my ankle fused completely, you know, my leg and all the way down to my toes. It's all made of metal. I started sharing that to show others that they can thrive, that they don't have to just survive, that they don't have to give up on the life of their dreams. And, you know, sometimes my husband says, you don't have to do so much. Like you're traveling, you're speaking, you're doing, now you're going to do another. When I told him I got another book deal, he was like, oh, when are you going to have time to do that? But, you know, I've told him, I said, you know, it brings me joy when I get to connect with people. That's what truly brings me joy, is when I get to connect with them and I get to see the transformation into them, and them step into their power and them spark more joy. And it really turns any pain that I have, which I have pain every single day still, into purpose. But my life was so different. And the reason I share about the books and that, you know, we all have a story is, like 6.5, 7 years ago, I didn't even own a computer. I did something completely different. And I had this idea to write a book because I thought, if I can overcome this tragedy, and if I can share my story and give one person hope and inspiration, then it's worth it. And I had so many people say, oh, you'll never write a book. You don't have a computer. You don't have a college education. You're that fitness girl. You need to stick to that. Some people are like, you're never going to work again. You're disabled. And I was like, then I'm definitely going to write a book. And I hand wrote 90%. Right? Yeah. I was like, I don't know about you, but that motivates me when somebody's like, oh, you can't do that. I'm like, well, that is exactly what I want to go and do. But, it was, it's almost been 15 years ago that my whole life changed in the blink of an eye. I had a very successful career in the fitness industry. I ran a business, employed several other trainers. I was doing, sponsored by Nike. I was on vitamin labels. So it was pretty wild. You would go into like CVS or Rite Aid and I would go, oh my gosh, that's my picture on those vitamins, on the vitamin labels. Wow. I was doing infomercials and, fitness videos, and finally, had the man of my dreams, 2 healthy children. On my way home from work on a Friday afternoon, I just finished running 11 miles in my fastest time. Like, fitness was my life. And I see this SUV, and as a motorcyclist, you're constantly aware of your surroundings to make sure that people see you. You drive very defensively, meaning that you need to be able to react quick. There's no eating or putting on makeup or at least not for me anyway.
Not, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And this SUV shoots out of a parking lot, and I didn't have time other than to just try to jump off my Harley, let go of the clutch, try to jump off, and it was too late. I got T-boned, thrown 30 feet, and I just remember sliding across the asphalt, and all I could think was, please don't let another car hit me, because I was on Ventura Boulevard in Los Angeles is where I lived at the time. And it's a very, very busy street. And when I came to a stop, I looked down at my leg and it was completely broken into pieces. I mean, there was blood everywhere. My foot was only attached by the skin. And one of the first things that I thought in that moment was, oh gosh, this can't be good. I might have to train crutches. I might have to train clients on crutches for a while. I had no idea I was literally bleeding out in the street and I might not live. And then I was cussing. It was the worst pain I'd ever felt. And I was thinking, oh, my Methodist mama is not going to be too proud of me. It's like crazy what you start to think. Mm-hmm. And paramedics got there right away. I was rushed to the hospital. It was chaotic in the ER. I'm taped to the gurney and I hear this man, just this wailing. And I'm like, what is that? And it was my husband. Now, he was a first responder. He was a big, strong, lieutenant commander with a CHP. He is a big, strong, tough guy. I'd never seen him cry, and he was hysterical. And in that moment, I thought, oh no, I might be dying. And I yelled across the room. I said, honey, get over here. I need you to be strong for me. Because in that moment, I thought, if I'm going to be dying, then I want to know that he's going to be able to take care of our 2 kids. And that's the last thing I remember before they put me in induced coma. And when I woke up out of a coma, the first thing I learned was, it's crazy. When you wake up out of a coma, you've got a tube going down your throat. You've got Vaseline on your eyes. And I was trying to rip the tube out. And they were like, oh, wait, don't do that, honey. And the nurse comes over and says, I think she's trying to say something. And they gave me a pad and a pen to write with. And the first thing I wrote was, don't tell Savannah. And that was my oldest daughter. And she was on a trip to New York, actually, for school. And little did I know, I had been in a coma for over a week. Savannah was already home. Everybody already knew. Yeah, and then the next thing I wrote was, my husband's like, he's leaning over me with tears in his eyes. And the next thing I write is, get off my tubes. You see, he was leaning on the tubes. I couldn't breathe, cutting the the air that was, I couldn't breathe. And then I learned I had a 1% chance of saving my leg. He said, I'm so sorry. This is a war wound. There is nothing we can do for you. We need to go ahead and amputate. And all I focused on in that moment was the 1% chance. And I thought, all I heard was, okay, so there's a chance.
There's a chance.
And there's a chance. And that was my glimmer of hope that I hung on to. I got transferred to another hospital and went through a total of surgeries after surgeries, a total of 34 altogether, to save my leg. And I haven't really shared this yet, but I have to have another surgery. Be surgery number 35, but who's counting?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
But they saved my leg. And I really kind of thought, the worst is over, and I had growing up an athlete and a professional dancer. It's like you heal, you work hard, you recover, and you get back to what you were doing. And it was just getting worse and worse, the pain. My leg was a different color. And I remember a friend of mine that he was another trainer that I worked with, and he came over. He said, "Why is one of your legs a different color?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. That's just the way it's healing. I don't know." But it was purple. Mm-hmm. And I went in to see a doctor, and he took one look at me, and he kind of examined me a little bit, and he ran out of the room. And I was like, well, that's not the reaction I was looking for. I thought he'd be real proud I was upright on crutches. He comes back and he said, "You've got something very serious." And I was kind of like, well, yeah, I got hit by an SUV, but look, I'm on crutches. And he goes, "Are you the kind of girl that likes to push through pain?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, yes, sir, I am." And I kind of thought, well, he can tell, he can tell I'm tough and I've got grit. Yeah. And he said, "No, you need to stop. You need to stop right now. You've got something very serious. You've got a nerve disease. It's called complex regional pain syndrome. It's a result of your accident. There's no known cure, and you're going to be permanently disabled. You need to go back and get in your wheelchair." And I thought, go back and get in my wheelchair. I was, okay, for how long? He said, "No, you don't understand. This is forever." And I felt like I'd been kicked in the gut, like given a life sentence. My whole life was fitness and dancing and running. And that was how I kept a roof over our head and paid the bills. And now I thought, this can't be possible. And I didn't go home and get my wheelchair. Instead, I went straight to physical therapy. And I told my therapist, I said, I just learned something, and I'm going to have to work harder than I've ever worked before if I'm going to have the life that I've always imagined and the vision that I see for my life. I'm going to have to keep going. And that has taken a ton of grit. And by the grace of God, I walk. But I still have this extreme pain from CRPS. And one of the reasons I was really inspired to write my new book is because I've learned that we get to choose joy, that pain and joy can coexist, and we can choose to build upon the joy. And it's really about being in the present moment. It's about embracing gratitude and purpose. And that's what really fuels the momentum. It's what gives you that spark in life. And so despite this pain that I live in every day, I've found ways to cultivate joy and really strengthen resilience. And so I'm passionate about sharing that with others because I think so often we get diagnosed with a health, issue, or we get bad news, or we're going through a divorce. And, some people might be going, well, I don't relate. I've never been hit by an SUV, and I pray to God you never experience that. I don't wish that on anybody, but I feel like we've all been hit by something, whether it's, our careers, our finances, our relationships, or our health. And what I've learned is there are absolutely ways to get through adversity. You can get through challenges, and it is by strengthening resilience. And I've just think that we should have a little more joy through the journey as well.
Amazing. Every time I hear that story, it's just like, I just want to hug you. You are like, what you did is, I think you're the 1%, just having the mindset to be able to get through this. And how many years ago? You said 15 years ago this was?
It's almost 15 years ago. And you know what? I'm so glad you said mindset, because I got, for the first time ever, I had haters come out of the woodwork.
Haters for
Because
what?
I
You,
was
you
on the
send me their names. Okay. We're in New York. We'll take care of them. All right.
Thanks. I got backup. Well, I was on the doctor's TV and they were interviewing me and they wanted to talk about pain and complex regional pain syndrome and what I have done to get through it. And they cut out the part of the interview where I said that I was on, at one point in time, I was on 73 homeopathic pills and 11 prescription medications, a spinal stimulator, ketamine infusions, Eastern, Western medicine. I mean, I was just back in a wheelchair last year. I went out of the country for a treatment and it did not go well at all. And this is actually right before I interviewed on Ed Milet's podcast. And I was like, I cannot believe I've been looking forward to going to see Ed. And I wanted to be able to walk into that interview. And I was like, you know what? I had to switch my mindset around. And I was like, I don't care if I have to crawl in there. I'm going to get there. But when they cut all of that out, on the doctor's TV, I had a lot of people that are in the CRPS community just come after me. They were like, I don't even believe she has CRPS. How is she wearing those shoes? Why is she smiling? You can't get through pain with your mindset. I'm like, well, it definitely starts with your mindset. And I think what that taught me in that moment was, you know what? When we come up against resistance or haters or somebody going against what we're saying, it's a good opportunity for us to either believe in our message and go, okay, no, what I do, does it work? And I'm like, well, heck yeah, it does work, because I wouldn't be able to travel, chase a new puppy, and do the things that I'm doing if I didn't have the right mindset. And it's not always perfect. I mess up, I fall down, I fall flat on my face. This last year was a struggle. I mean, probably one of the hardest years of my life health-wise. I think there was even one time we were going to record and I'd had a really bad flare-up or something. And, so I regularly have a nurse come over and give me IVs. That helps. I do so many things. I'm having another trial stimulator implanted in my back in a couple of months. So it's not that I have it, all figured out. I'm still growing and I'm learning. But what I do share is what does work for me, because it might not be for somebody. It might not work for somebody else. But what if it does? What if it changes your life for the better? And if we just come together and share what helps us, then we all get to grow and we all get to thrive.
Well, nobody wishes that you got hit by that SUV. And I can't emphasize that enough. But because of your mindset and your persistence and endurance and your fighting spirit, look at all the amazing goodness that has come out of it, right? I mean, the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that you have been helping and that you're going to continue to help, right? I had a guy this is years ago, I had my podcast, and he was a young kid. He was a teenager, and his mom went to the grocery store with his mother, and someone in the parking lot forgot to put their brake on, and this truck, and he didn't even see it coming, like literally ran over him and tore off his arm. And
are you talking about my friend Brian Bogert?
Brian Bogert. Yes, you know Brian. Yes.
He is one of my best friends.
Oh, my God.
He was just over at the house.
Are you serious?
I'm not kidding. He was just over at the house. And then I just saw him 2 weeks ago. I was speaking at an event in Scottsdale, and he came over and we went to my hotel room so we could have a quiet place to record. And we were moving the sofa and the table and stuff in the room to record a podcast. And
with your leg in his arm, you moved all that furniture, huh?
Oh yeah, we were just going for it, and he's my brother from another mother.
That is amazing. You two know each other.
It was a 2-hour podcast. We were because We get together, maybe it was longer. We get together and it's just like, seriously, he's like a brother to me. Yeah. So
That
as
is,
soon as you started saying that story, I'm like, I bet I know who you're
yeah, I know
talking
the
about.
story. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
love him.
that warms my heart that you two are so close. But when I heard his story, similar story, to you, except the leg, it was the arm. And, they, as you know, they put it back on, and now his arm is much, much smaller than his other arm. And same thing as you, is he's using it to put all this goodness in the world. And I asked him on my podcast, I said, do you wish this never happened? And he goes, no, I would wish every day that I got run over by that truck again, even though this happened to my arm, because it has changed the trajectory of my life to do so much goodness in the world. I was like, wow, I mean, and, I bet you'll say the same thing. As tough as it was, and 15 years later still is, the question is, would you change anything? Right. I mean, it's a tough question, right?
Yeah. I had a lot of people ask that. Especially right after the accident happened. And I always say that's never been like a thought process, because I'm just like, okay, I love the serenity prayer. In fact, I have it right over here behind my desk, and it's grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
I love that. Yeah.
And I knew I can't go back and change anything. All I can do is try to be a good human and the best version of myself, and a good example for my children. And, my purpose is to go out there and connect with people and spark more joy and give hope and inspiration. But when you were saying that, there is one thing that I think is the hardest thing about the whole accident. And it makes me emotional thinking about it. And it's like, I feel like so many moments were stolen from me because I was in and out of so many surgeries. And then even when I was in so much pain and not at my best because I was just so out of it and knocked out, that I couldn't be present with my family, with my children. And my youngest daughter was only 2 years old, and my oldest daughter was going into high school, which are my youngest daughter was just going into like a preschool, and my oldest daughter was going into a brand new high school. And I felt like I couldn't be there, and there's so much pressure as a teenager too. And my daughter doesn't remember this, but I remember it because it felt like a jagger in my heart at the time. When I was in the hospital, she was having a back to school mother-daughter dance. And she said, well, Mom, I don't want you to go if you're going to be in a wheelchair. It wasn't about the wheelchair as much as I think it was just, she didn't want to draw attention to it. You know what I mean? And so I used to be so shameful and hate my situation and hate my leg and try to act like nothing was wrong. And I remember when my youngest daughter started going to kindergarten, and, I was in and out of surgeries for years, and I was on crutches, and it was in brand new school. And I thought, I don't want people to notice that there's something different with me. I don't want people to know that I'm in pain. I definitely don't want anybody to see my scars. I just want to be normal, whatever that is. I just want to be normal. And I remember it was a really bad day and I could not walk. And so I pulled up to the school, and I told my oldest daughter, I said, Savannah, can you please go get Ruby? I was like, I don't want to walk up there with crutches. And she goes, yeah. And she comes back. She said, the teacher won't let her come with me. And I said, are you kidding? I was furious. This teacher was a piece of work, by the way. And I usually love teachers. My sister's a teacher. Yeah. This one.
Bad apple.
So I go up there in my crutches, and I said, yeah, my daughter was helping me out because I'm having trouble walking, and I didn't want to walk up with crutches and, have to carry stuff with crutches when I've got a daughter that can help me with that.
Sure.
Now, it's totally different. I think transformation starts with acceptance and awareness, and I'm not embarrassed of crutches at all anymore. Like
Yeah.
I have Canadian crutches and I am fast on those. And I look at those crutches as it helps me. Like
What are
I'm
Canadian
not
crutches?
very, they're the ones that go around your arms.
Okay.
And so, somebody's been on crutches a long time if they have the ones that go around your
Gotcha.
forearms.
Gotcha. Yeah. I thought that you were going to say
And
Kenyan crutches because you go so fast,
well, I can go fast on those Canadian crutches. I can move. And it's all how you kind of perceive yourself is. And I started going, you know what? I don't care if I'm on crutches. I'm proud I can be upright. And then, and the same thing when I remember being in a scooter to go on a field trip with my daughter, I was like, oh, now all these moms are going to know that something's wrong with me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to own it. I can't walk throughout the whole zoo because of my legs. So I rented a little scooter and I made it the most fun. Kids were standing in line waiting their turn to ride on that scooter with me. And I was letting them drive it, like steer it, by the way, too.
You were the star of the show because you owned it.
Yeah, just owning your story. It's like, then nobody can use it against you,
Yeah. And you really do that. I mean, I think we talked about mindset and, as you know, there's the growth mindset and then there's the fixed mindset. When that second doctor said, oh my God, you're going to be in a wheelchair forever, get used to it. You could have had a fixed mindset and been like, woe is me, and been a victim, right? Just kind of really dove into that, picked up some bad habits, felt sorry for yourself. And that's a fixed mindset, kind of accepting life as it is. Whereas you had the growth mindset where you were like, you know what? I'm not accepting that. And you're living proof that a growth mindset is a large piece of the pie when it comes to maxing your life out and being your best self. And, probably the doctors don't like mindset because they can't make money off prescribing it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. I'm very fortunate. I had some amazing doctors like Dr. Don Wiss, who saved my leg.
Yeah.
I love that man.
I gotta ask you a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when you were telling the story, so they kept your leg for that whole week when you were in a coma. How lucky are you? Because what stopped them from amputating it when you were in the coma? Because could they have just made the call like it's got to go?
Oh, it was my husband.
Oh,
My
your
husband was like,
beautiful.
yeah, he was like, no, you are not going to amputate her leg.
Good for him.
I want her to wake up out of a coma with both her legs and that to be her decision. Yeah. And so, for a long time.
He's a keeper, huh? What a guy.
Yeah, he is. He is. But yeah, for a long time, he would say, you know what? You just remember you have both of your legs because of me. And I'm like, okay, honey.
When you get mad at him, he's got to remind you of certain things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he is. He's a keeper. So
we talked about after the accident, but yeah, I mean, your life wasn't, growing up wasn't, what do they say? Puppy dogs and roses either, or whatever. I mean, you had a challenging upbringing as well.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody has challenges growing up. I don't know if anybody has a perfect childhood. And, I don't wish some of the things that happened to me on anyone, like the sexual abuse and the beatings from my brother. Mm-hmm. But those things have allowed me to share with other women who have carried shame, men too, actually, when they read my first book. So I talked about it for the first time in my first book. I mean, I think I'd talked about it a little bit on podcast interviews, but I wrote about it in my first book, True Grit and Grace, and being able to share about it and have people come to me and say, thank you so much, whisper in my ear, thank you so much for sharing that. It's the first time I realize I feel like I can let go of that shame, that I'm not alone, that I can walk with my held head high, And I think that everything that I've gone through as a child, growing up, if we wanted something, we had to work for it. I started working at 8 years old. babysitting, making $1 per kid per hour. So I was so happy if I had 3 kids to babysit. And it's crazy to think 8 years old, I was in charge of babysitting. And sometimes, like, I remember babysitting an infant, but I come from a bigger family. So I was used to helping out with the, my brother and my little sister, my other little brother. And by the time I was in high school, I was working. I was a manager at this place called the Cookie Jar. I was teaching dance. I was choreographing for the drill teams, making money. I mean, I was scrubbing toilets because I had a goal. I had a mission. And I was really, I think, kind of pushed by the pain of sexual abuse. And I chose to thankfully have a healthy outlet and decide that I wanted to do things that would spark more joy. And that meant getting into athletics, getting into dance, working and earning my own money, becoming a straight A student, like anything that would bring me joy, that would make me feel good is what I was like laser focused on. And I feel like whatever we focus on, there's that saying where where your attention goes, energy flows. Yep. And so, I think growing up like that, it taught me to be a hard worker. I had a great mentor, a couple. My coach, track coach, taught me mindset a lot. Like, she would have me sit in the front seat on the bus with her for every track meet. And she would say, Amberly, we're depending on you to get us to district. Like, you have to get first place.
No pressure.
So, oh, no pressure. I would throw up literally before every meet. I mean, it was a lot of pressure, but you know what?
She must have expected great things from you, huh? She knew.
Well, I set a record for running the fastest mile in the state of Texas, so she was a good coach.
Wow.
But, and then my dance teacher, she taught me more than just how to teach dance. She taught me how to show up. She taught me how to run a business. And I remember her saying things like, and this is really going to date myself, but back then we had record players.
I had many. I still have my record collection. My kids are like, what are these?
Oh, that's so cool. I would love to have a record player again.
Yeah.
But I just remember my dance teacher would say, you know what? I don't care. In her she was hardcore, and she'd say, like, I don't care if you lost your dog or your best friend or somebody died, whatever goes on in your life. When you put the needle on the record and you turn around to teach class, you show up with a smile on your face.
I love that. And
she was just like, that was to me, like, it wasn't about being fake, but it was about take responsibility. Don't be a doggy downer is what I call it. Don't have the victim mentality. Have the mentality of the victor. You can be a victor of your life. And so I learned from a young age that we get a choice in that it's not that you have to be in denial or you can't, accept or feel those feelings, but ask yourself, well, instead of why me, what's next?
I just got goosebumps when you said that, the way you said that, just that we have a choice, right? We have a choice in the direction, right? And that's a great metaphor about life. When the needle hits the record, it's go time. And every morning when you wake up, the needle's hitting the record, right? And maybe the song's not going to be great some days, but you're still doing your best, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
What I found in my experience of just studying, really successful people like yourself that are, making such a difference in other people's lives is often it does come from a place of pain, right? And there's, like, I look at Grant Cardone, who was a drug addict and alcoholic, and he was funneling his energy towards that life until his mother said, I never want to see you again, get out of my life. And that was his bottoming out. And then he obviously took that energy and funneled it someplace else, right? He's one of the, world's most richest guys, I guess, in real estate and thought leaders, et cetera. Tony Robbins, same thing, had a lot of challenges growing up, and we're talking about Ed Milet. Ed Milet talks about some of his struggles growing up. And, Ed Milet, who is, my God, he's a massively successful gazillionaire and now influencer as well. He is very open about, he was on my podcast years ago, that he and his wife were so broke that they were living in an apartment building and they got their water turned off because they couldn't pay the water bill. And, and they had to go in the pool and then the shower of the pool just to kind of clean up. And he goes, you don't realize how humiliating life can be when your water is turned off because you use water for cooking, cleaning, so many things that we don't even think about, right? And there's a guy now that's in excess. If he's worth, we'll say millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? Massively successful, like you, making incredible impact in the world. And so, and so that's where it goes back to you saying it's a choice because, and you said it before too, a lot of bad things happen to a lot of people. And many people will use those bad things to cower down, feel like a victim, play the blame game, and accept that that's their life. Or, kind of transform that negative energy into something positive. And I see that over and over again. So it's just like you're funneling with laser focus all of your incredible God-given talents in making such a big difference in the world. And I'm just so grateful that you're sharing your story and using it to make the world a better place.
Well, my goodness, thank you. Thank you for, can I just hang out with you all day? I mean, you're saying all these really nice things. Well, you were saying all these really nice things, but I do, you list all the, listening. I just want you to know, like, behind the scenes, it's a lot of grit. It's a lot of work. And I have to constantly remind myself that not to isolate, to reach out for help, especially from God. Keep keep God close. And, it's funny. My husband will say, man, you've got, who are you today? Because I have like two looks. I either look like I'm homeless or I'm ready for stage most of the time. It's like
all or nothing.
Yeah, it's because when I'm home and I'm like got my head down and I'm working hard, it's like that's all I'm focused on, laser focused on it. But also, I just had Forbes reach out and want to do an article. They had it's funny. I'm like, yeah, Forbes, that's great. So not about the book. I was hoping it was going to be about joy through the journey, but they're like, oh, no, but actually we see that Amberly travels all over the place speaking, and we think it would be really fun for her to do an article on her travels, like what hotel she stays at, what luggage she uses, what food she eats. And I laughed and I actually wrote back to him. I was like, well, that might be fun. I was like, but I have to keep it real with you. It's not pretty. I mean, I travel with a suitcase that I can use for a crutch if I need a crutch, especially traveling when I get flared up from the CRPS. Sure. When I'm at an event, I usually don't have time to eat. Like theirs might be a lunch break scheduled, but I'm not eating. I'm talking with people. Yeah. And so I was like, I pack beef sticks and protein bars and protein powder. And then I get back to my hotel room and I order room service and I eat like a caveman with my hands because I'm so hungry.
That's what I want to see. That's what I want.
So I swear, like my husband has come to my hotel room before and been like, who are you? Like,
I want to see that on Instagram. Come on.
I've shared. I think I shared one of the last times last week when I was at an event, and I was like, look at I was like famished, and I don't know what it is about. I think it's just the energy that you expend all day. Like you're meeting people, you're on stage. It's the adrenaline. It's all fun and and the excitement, and then it's like you're not hungry at all, and then you're just starving. Yeah. But it is a lot of work. behind the scenes. And it's, my book launch started yesterday, and I was up at 4 a.m. yesterday, and I was up till 1 o'clock in the morning last night.
Wow.
And my husband was like, "You need to go to bed." And I was like, "Yeah, but I got a few emails I got to return. Like, I got to get these out." And I think that's a season. We all have these seasons, and you have to know when to push, and you also have to know when to slow down around the curves so you don't wipe out.
Jim Rohn, I God rest his soul, used to say, there's summer, and then there's winter, right? There's a time to go, and then there's a time to rest, right? Yep, absolutely. That's another thing I love about you is, like, on the surface, even though you've been through this accident, people could look at you 15 years later and say, you're in the end zone. You got it all, speaker, author, podcaster, you have a mastermind group, you're doing so many great things, big influencer. Dare I say, celebrity. But God, I just heard you on Ed Bylett's podcast a few months ago, and you're talking about how some days the pain is so bad that you don't know if you could get through the day. Or I remember, and I was so proud of you because, you talked about that you've had issues with alcohol and that you're dry, right? And
no, not dry, sober.
Sober. I'm sorry. Is that the correct?
No, because the people in the sober community will definitely know the difference. In fact, today, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to say
please.
something really quick.
Yeah.
So I have a new assistant who's great. And she's like, "Amberly, your schedule is back to back to back to back again today. Like, is there anything can you cut out one thing?"
Yeah.
And it's a season because I'm in launch mode, but she goes, "I see you have this person scheduled and it's an ongoing. Can you postpone that because you see this person every week?" And I said, "Oh, no. I was like, that's my sponsor. There's no way I can skip that because I have to put, as long as I can stay sober, I can get through anything." But yeah, I started drinking. I thought I was like, I am not going to be like some of the people in my family. Like, I am going to do something with my life. And lo and behold, I realized that addiction doesn't discriminate. And I could not get out of pain and started drinking to self-medicate. And I just was like, I think I got a problem.
Yeah.
And, that was my lowest point. I thought, here, I have survived this near-death accident, gotten through 34 surgeries to slowly be killing myself with alcohol. And by the grace of God, in 2016, I reached out for help and asked for help. That person, never heard from them again. And I'm like, oh no, I need help like now or I'm going to die. And literally addiction is a life or death situation. And I Googled recovery programs and 12-step programs, and I found a meeting that I could go to when my husband was at work and my daughter was at school. I went from sneaking my drinking to now I was sneaking going to recovery meetings. But I still put my sobriety first. I still, stay closely connected with my sober sisters. In fact, we have a gratitude practice every single day. We have meetings together. I still see my sober sisters in California on Zoom every single week. I have meetings here in Texas. And I knew when I moved to Texas, I thought, there are 3 things I got to find before I even moved to Texas. I have to get this set up. It was a barn for my horse, so she would have a community of horse crazy girls. It was church for me, so I would have that faith-based community and support there. And number 1, it was like, I got to find meetings because I got to keep my sobriety. And I think community is powerful. So if you're listening, whether it's struggling with addiction or if you're struggling on your entrepreneurial journey, or if you're like at home, man, I remember being a mom and I was working part-time at one time when I was a mom. And that was hard. Whatever it is, don't do it alone. Ask for help because that's what changed my life.
Yeah. Fantastic advice. And so I will remember sober, not dry. So thank you for that.
Yeah, because dry is usually
like dry January miserable. Or something. Right.
It's considered no recovery. You're kind of cranky, resentful. It's worse than being a drunk a lot of times.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely not you. I don't think anyone has ever said that you're a dry, curmudgeon-y human being. So you are a happy, sober woman. I love that about you. No, what I was going to say when you were talking about Ed is that even recently you had a tough day. You were in the hotel room and they had a little mini bar there and you were tempted, right? And you were like, and thank God you said no, right? I think you got it removed or something, but I was like,
no, I mean, I've learned to take contrary action and pause. There's power in the pause.
Power in the
and
pause.
Instead, I remember that I was in so much pain. I couldn't walk and I didn't have crutches with me because I had just come out of this procedure. And I was like, I got to get out of this room. And so I hobbled down. I used my suitcase as a crutch, hobbled downstairs, ordered a whole pizza, by the way. I don't ever eat pizza. And I sat outside by the pool, ate pizza, and called my sponsor.
I love that. I love that.
And I stayed sober.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Did you finish the pizza?
Just about. Just saying. I can eat.
Another great thing about you. Fantastic. So, Amberly, I could talk to you for hours and hours. I know that you're back to back today because of your book launch. And thank you for not having your assistant cancel me because I certainly would have cried. So I appreciate you keeping me on a schedule today. It means the world to me.
Well, I've been looking forward to you. And yeah, you know what? It's the first time actually ever that I have an assistant that is helping me with my schedule. And I highly suggest that for anybody, whether you have an assistant or not, is like block off times on your day. It's been a game changer for me. So like, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't give somebody a time slot at like 6 a.m. I'm like, why can't I give them this slot? Well, she's blocked off. My personal time is like from 4:30 or 5 till 7 a.m. And no one can take that time, you know?
Smart.
And so it just helps to really know what your priorities are, really know what brings you joy, have some joy rituals, to just so you can, you know, be in the present moment and strengthen your resilience and show up as the best version of yourself.
Well, Amberly, I'm telling you, I think everybody's now knows why I wanted you to be my first guest as I bring back my podcast over 2 years. I just wanted to have kind of a blowout first episode that is going to set the tone for the rest of the podcast series of mine. So thank you so much. I want to help you. So everybody buy the book, go to Amazon or your website, correct? And it's
Joy. Well, you know, I think Amazon might be the best place because I had people telling me it was sold out at Barnes & Noble.
Okay. Yeah. Barnes & Noble is struggling with some of that stuff.
I'm going to be like, Amazon is coming through. Yep. Joy Through the Journey on Amazon.
Joy Through the Journey. Yeah. And then also, what is I mentioned it a little bit at the beginning, but your event, the Unstoppable Success Summit.
Oh, I am so excited about it. So this is my annual event.
When is it? What's the date?
It's April 25th and 26th. Yeah, I hope you can come.
I'm going to try to come.
I have some friends coming from New York.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, it's for entrepreneurs, and I've got, you know, incredible speakers and it's really too, if you're looking to expand your influence and your impact so you can make a bigger income. And I've got, you know, speakers who are coming, Renee Rodriguez.
I know Renee. Yeah, fantastic.
I love Renee. Trent Shelton is speaking.
Don't know
I've
him.
got also my mastermind members. Some of them are taking the stage. Tamara Andress, Brooke Hemingway. Yeah. And so there's just, and me. Yes. But this is actually, this is the first year I'm not emceeing the event. I feel kind of fancy that I actually have an MC for the event. So
very nice.
That's exciting.
Can I confess something to you?
What?
So yesterday, just to do the prep for this podcast, I went on your website and I'm looking through the event, right? And I'm getting all excited. I'm actually going to try to go. So But I have a ritual every morning where I have my bucket list on just a Google Doc, and I go through it like, what am I going to work on this week? What's my next thing? And then I add things to my bucket list as well. So no pressure, but I added on my bucket list today that someday I want to be a speaker at your event.
Oh, I love that.
So it's on my bucket list, Amberly. So, what is the saying, where the energy goes, it flows, right? So
yes.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I really think that happens. I wanted to be on, podcasts and have my own podcast, and that started to happen. I wanted to speak at some events, and that started to happen. So I really do think when you you write it down, it's powerful. Yeah. When you, hold that vision and then take action steps every single day. And when you approach it, through a place of how it brings you joy, I think that's when it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's how a lot of great things for me have happened. I got another thing I added on my bucket list this year is that I want to do a triathlon. So, and I've run a half marathon. That's the most I've done some bike races and bike rides, 70 miles, things like that. But and nothing but swimming. I mean, I know how to swim, but I've never, done like a 2-mile swim. So that's another thing on my bucket list. So I'll let you know how that goes.
That's amazing.
Well, you're inspiring me. Amberly. So I know we're coming up to an hour here. You probably have another podcast to be on or something to do with your book launch. But
I do. Well, actually, you know what? I have an interview next for a speaking event. And so, so crossing my fingers, they're going to be like, yeah. So we'll see.
Of course. It already happened. I feel it.
Well, thank you. I just love talking with you. Thank you so much for having me on. And
of course.
And yeah, please reach out to me. If you're listening and you're like, well, she said, don't do it alone, ask for help. Shoot me a DM. It's me on, at Amberly Lago Motivation. It's me actually in my DMs, in my email.
Instagram.
Yeah. Instagram is my main hub. I'm not as good on trying to get better at Facebook, but Instagram is my main hub.
Yeah, no, you're a big deal on Instagram. You've got a fair amount of followers there. Congratulations.
Well, I don't know if I'm a big deal, but I think maybe my new puppy will be soon.
Amberly just got a puppy yesterday, everybody. A gift the day before her book, or the day of your book launch, right?
No.
Timing is everything.
Yeah.
And go to our website, amberlylago.com to get in touch, right? Follow, links to all your socials are there, right? Event, books, listen to her podcast, etc. Join her mastermind. You got so many, I don't know how you keep it all together, Amberly. God bless you. You're doing great work.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. You're so kind. No, I'm just trying to figure it all out like the rest of us, man. I just really am, but I just appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, you're doing a great job. And thank you again for being my first guest. I truly appreciate it. It means the world to me, and very glad that we were able to share some heartbeats today.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again. And I also want to thank everybody, listeners, viewers, etc., for being part of the David Mammano Show family. Go to davidmammano.com to learn more about how to get involved with me. If you want me to be a speaker at your event, you want to throw me an email, you want to sign up for my newsletter, whatever you want to do, I am here for you at davidmammano.com. Thanks again, Amberly. Thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it. And make sure to stay awesome.